Hi and welcome to Wildflash. This is a weekly roundup of news and commentary on all the little things that have been happening in the world of Warcraft in the past week. So the way I'm organising this now is to cover the various news items first and then go on to any sort of messages related to my channel. However, just this week I'm just going to give a shout out to the live Ret Q&A. That is going to be on Sunday the 28th of August. So that's a week this Sunday coming. It'll be a couple of days before Legion itself launches. It's going to be at 7 o'clock in the evening UK time, not the same as GMT, but there'll be more details on that later. So there's been quite a few pieces of news in this penultimate reset of Warlords of Draenor. It's nearly over, and the demon hunters continue to swarm all over Azeroth. So do the invasion. There's been quite a few things with the invasions. Now the first thing is that they changed it from 2 every 4 hours to 3 every 2 hours. They did say they'd increase in frequency. Dropped a bit of a clanger, I would say, because what had happened was the experience was really nice for leveling. And there's quite a few people, myself included, leveled or tried to level a last minute alt, and then they smashed the experience that came from it, which was a little bit petty, I thought. Now the response was that if you consider the fact that it is now effectively 3 times as many invasions in that 4-hour period, that it's more experience per hour still, even though each invasion was nerfed. I do feel that that ignored the fact that lower level alts still leveling don't find such an easy time travelling around, especially if you're not a mage, or even if you are a mage at quite low level. So if you take into account the travel time between the invasions, you probably can't get around them all without help, up to a certain point anyway. But anyway, there were, of course, a certain number of complaints, and then they've sort of backtracked a little bit on that. So now the situation is you still don't get a lot of experience for like AFKing them. But if you go and kill some mobs, you do get more experience. They've sort of upped the experience from that. There were a couple of problems with it. For example, if you go and attack an Infernal, you know, big mob gives you a fair amount of experience, but then higher levels come and do the same thing. Because remember, this is probably a lot of people's first introduction to scaling in in World of Warcraft, because Legion, of course, has these scaled zones where it doesn't matter what level you are, the mobs scale to your level. Well, the same thing's happening here. There's this Infernal, which is a tough old chestnut for a level 100, but then level 10 can still attack it because as far as the level 10 is concerned, it's scaled down to their level. But you had a situation where if you're a lower level hitting it and a high level comes in and starts hitting as well, you weren't getting very much experience from it or something like that. They've sort of acknowledged a few little bugs like that, which they are hot fixing, or may actually have hot fixed by now. I don't know. I'm not really in a position to test so much. I'm mostly AFK in these invasions still. A couple of reasons. One is it means I can do things like this. At the moment, I am in Tanaris doing an invasion on my rogue, but so it means I can do other things at the same time. So. But it also means when I'm able to play the game, I sometimes go in, but then just get immediately ganked because, you know, low level. The mobs might scale down to my level, but the other players certainly don't. But yeah, I mean, it is. They seem to. I'm not going to say they've been doing this lots and lots, but I would say when it comes to what you might term a bit of a PR. Disaster is probably a strong word, but a bit of a PR misstep, shall we say. They seem to be doing them increasingly regularly. I mean, we had the flying thing with Warlords of Draenor. Now, although I am on the side of I wish flying were not a thing in World of Warcraft, the fact is the genie's out the bottle. Because it's been in for so long, they didn't, you know, if they'd have just brought it in for TBC for Outlands and then stopped it, it'd have been okay. But they kept it in for so long, to the point where the vast majority of people playing this game now don't remember a time when we didn't have flying, at least at level cap. So it's a core part of the game. So that was always going to be, there's always going to be a backlash there, and of course they ran back on it. We've had other little ones. I mean, the two most notable ones would be the max camera settings one, which again they've had to backtrack on. They you still can't zoom out as much as you could before. So it's their like way of saying, well, we're not going to put it right back to where it was because that just makes us look complete fools. But in reality, it's now fine. I think it's okay now. But yeah, and then this one as well. Again, who's it hurting? It's one of these things. It's like you can understand when they do something unpopular if it's for the benefit of the player base as a whole. So when something's overpowered for a particular class and they nerf it, the players of that class go, oh, yeah, bugger. But it's for the benefit of everyone else. This is something that's no benefit. It's like, who's it hurting if you can level an alt at the last minute? It's no one, really. And it actually potentially would help Blizzard because they've changed all the toolkits. All the classes have changed. And, of course, those of us who've been looking at this for some time will have had a lot of warning of this. Some people won't have done. There'll be a lot of people playing this game. The first they knew their classes were changing massively was when they changed a few weeks ago. And they might be looking at their class going, I don't like the way it plays now. Oh, but maybe I quite like to play that other class. And this was a nice way of getting it leveled up and geared up, ready for Legion. And now it's a bit like... Because, I was... For example, there was this rogue. I have an Alliance rogue. Engineer, which is what I want. Reasonably geared. But... So I'm on a Horde guild. I wanted to transfer it to the Horde guild. It's very expensive to do that. And I was waiting for a sale on transfers just before Legion. Doesn't seem to be coming. So then when this invasion thing came out, I thought, oh, you get good experience here. So I just leveled another rogue on the place I'm at now, on the in the guild I'm at now. And it was going fine for a while. Then they heavily nerfed it, and all of a sudden now it's taking a lot longer. I'm now not going to have time, because I've got other things to do as well. I can't just spend all my time leveling this thing. I won't now be able to level it up to 100 and have enough time to level up the professions without taking time off something else, which I'm not going to do. So I'm sort of caught, I'm a bit annoyed because it's actually, even though I will now just slowly chip it away just for the hell of it, because I really don't want to pay another transfer fee cross-faction unnecessarily, that I'll probably... but it's one of those things where I think, well, let's say I did abandon the project. I've just wasted all that time. And that's my personal story. Other people may have other ones. But it just seems to me that Blizzard didn't stand to gain anything out of nerfing the experience. And they've just come across as, again, being petty. It's just another reason for people to moan. And there's enough people moan at them anyway, no matter what they do, without actually giving cause for people to do it. So... But it's not all been bad news with the invasions. They also allowed gear to be warforged. So, 700 gear that you could get from... This is just for armour pieces. It's not for weapons. It's pointless for weapons anyway, because the first thing you're going to do in Legion is get a different weapon anyway. But the gear, yes, it can be warforged by 10 or even 20 item levels. Got some pieces of gear now that are 720 item level. Of course, there are some people who thought they'd done on certain alts or characters in the first week, and now, they're doing it again to get all the warforged stuff. It's a good idea, I suppose, to keep people doing all this content, doing the new invasions. I wonder if they're going to put something different in next week. We'll have to wait and see. Another thing that's been happening this week, there's been quite a lot of sort of SimCraft profiles going around, like comparisons between different specs. Pay no heed to any of them. They're all hugely inaccurate. Even the ones that have been done in good faith, which is by no means all of them, are not terribly accurate. The thing is, what you've got to remember, SimCraft, it's not a representation of what's happening in game or in the beta or wherever. It's a model of it, and that model needs to be complete. And there's lots of people giving up their time to work on these things. And some people are able to spend more time or have more people helping on some of the profiles compared to others. So some of them are in good shape and reasonably accurate for the conditions that they're modelling, that is, and some of them are not. And you've also got to remember these comparisons are also usually just patchwork type simulations anyway, even if they were accurate, which is not necessarily accurate representation of how you'll deal damage in dungeons or in a realistic raid situation either. But certainly at the moment the actual profiles are not, they're not all accurate, so yeah, ignore comparison charts completely. There was a big piece of news. There was Gamescom, of course, and Blizzard had an announcement regarding patch 7.1. One thing that has rolled eyes in some people and excited others is Return to Karazhan. In fact, the patch is called Return to Karazhan, I believe. And it's going to be a 5-man dungeon. Now, fear ye not, Unlike with the troll raids, Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman, they're not replacing the raid with a 5-man dungeon. The raid will still be there. So the Karazhan raid is still going to be untouched, which is good news, because I hate it when they get rid of old content to replace it. I don't mind them putting new content on top of it, that's fine. But when they get rid of the old stuff, which I used to really like, that's annoying. It's going to be 9 bosses. Now there's 11 bosses in the raid character. Well, 12 if you count the basement boss, but I never count the basement boss. So obviously there's going to be, I mean, you'd think like Nightbane would be gone. I would hope that quite a lot of them have gone and just replaced with other ones. We know Morrow's is going to be in there because there was like a cinematic patch trailer thing, and Morrow's featured in that. So you've got to think he's going to be in. And there might be a couple that are in common as well, but I don't. Beyond that, I don't really know. The only thing is, there were a couple of announcements where I was thinking to myself, it raises a lot of questions here. I don't understand why at these sort of events we don't have like proper journalists that ask questions. It always seems to be that the sort of people supposedly reporting on it are just gushing, oh my god, this is amazing news, and don't actually ask any follow-up questions. Because the immediate question that would come to me, oh, Karazhan 5-man, this is going to be a huge dungeon. This is like back in the day, Blackrock Depths, Stratholme, Moradin, these sort of huge dungeons. Good. Now, but putting it into the Legion context, okay, I can't see people really wanting to do it Mythic Plus. I'm not sure I would see people really wanting to do it Mythic. They might. Maybe they are. Maybe that's what the intention is. Maybe it's supposed to be like a raid for the people who wanted 10-man cozy raids in the past. You know, it's like, well, there's your raid for 5 people, nice and cozy. Maybe that's what it is. But in general terms, I can't imagine the sort of people that do Mythic Plus are going to be all that keen when it's a timed thing on doing such a large dungeon. And then you think, well, it's no use for heroic either, because can you imagine, you can't put it in the normal queue thing. Can you imagine queuing up for a random heroic and you get that? People will leave. Because people just want the quick stuff, don't they? I mean, let's be honest. Right or wrong. So I don't see, and I would like them, and they must have a plan. I'm not saying they're just doing it mindlessly. They must have an intent. But no one asked them about it. I don't get that. Why do people go to these events and not ask these sort of questions? But that was one piece of news. Another piece of news is there's going to be a raid between Emerald Nightmare, which is the first raid, the 7-boss raid to come out in Legion, and Night's Hold, which is the second raid to come out, all as part of the same tier, tier 19. 10-man raid, I think. Is that right? I think it's 10-man raid. And so there's going to be like a small raid between, which you assume is like 1 or 2 bosses. And it's going to finish off the Stormheim story. Now, for those who sort of are steering clear of all the storyline, don't want spoiling, all I will say is it's not being said this is the case, but it's surely, I think everyone just believes it's going to involve the boss at the end of the Maw of Souls dungeon. So, you know, if you wanted to steer clear of spoilers, you would have avoided that news. You won't know who that is still. And if you haven't, then you will have done. Was that it for that particular announcement? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. They were talking about the fact that in Legion there'll be no content drought. And they were talking about the fact, you know, they recognise that they've sort of front-loaded content in the past. They're trying to avoid that. I don't really see evidence of them avoiding that at the moment, I have to say. But we'll see, we'll see. But they said something curious. They said that a tier should last 4 to 5 months. They've also said that the reason why we've had these content droughts is because they had this philosophy of trying to bring out expansions more quickly and they weren't able to do so. Well, anyone with half a brain could have told them that. To be fair, this is probably not the Blizzard developers themselves who ever tried to do that. I don't believe they would have ever wanted to do that. Makes no sense. Because when you've got to develop a new expansion, not only do you have to develop the new dungeons and raids and stuff like that, which you would have to do for a new tier, you've got to have new zones. You've got to design a whole new... You know, they always monkey about with the classes. I mean, they don't in other MMOs. It's not a fact of MMOs that each new expansion has to completely change the way classes and specs work. But Blizzard seem to like doing that. So they always have to do that. They'll need to have... They always feel the need to either have a new something to do with your character customization, whether it's a new class or a new race or whatever. There's lots of things that come with an expansion that don't have to come with a new new zones. So I don't believe developers ever wanted to do this. This must have been come from upstairs. But yeah, still, anyone with any intelligence would see, although other MMOs do bring out expansions, like some bring them out every year even, they're not good quality. You know, whereas Blizzard do a proper job of testing them. The testing period lasts about a year, let's be honest. So, as in the open testing, like, you know, when alpha and beta sort of went out to people and NDAs lifted, there would have been about a year of that before Legion comes out, nearly. About 9 months at least anyway. Plus, of course, there have been a lot of internal testing before that. But, you know, never mind. They've now said that their philosophy is now of bringing expansions out when they're ready, and in the meantime, making sure there's always new content. So focusing on new content for the current expansion. We'll take them at the word that if that's the case, great, and that would certainly allow them to do that. But then they say a tier should last 4 to 5 months, and you're working this out, and you think, okay, about a month at the start of the expansion when there's nothing out, or no new, there's plenty out, but hopefully no new dungeons. In reality, it's probably only 3 weeks, but a month would be better. But we'll say about a month. There's going to be 3 tiers. They've already said that. Now, let's say that's the upper end. They say 4 to 5 months, but let's say 5 months for all of them. So that puts us up to 16 months now. Then let's say another month for the pre-next expansion patch. So that's 17 months. Legion's going to be out longer than that if they're saying they're not going to rush it. Other expansions have been out for roughly, not quite 2 years. They've always been around about 22 months, you know, not always exactly 22 months, but about that. So you'd think Legion will be out the same, especially, I mean, if they've been out for around about 22 months when they've been trying to rush them, if they get into a position where they're not trying to rush them, you would think roughly the same period as well. Well, where's the other 5 months gone? What it sounds to me like, I mean, again, I'd like to ask them this question, what it might be, because they just said no content drought. They didn't say that, you know, a raid wouldn't last for the last year, because this is what's likely to happen. You've got Emerald Dream, you've got Nighthold, then you've got the second tier, because they're the same tier, even though it's 2 raids. Then you've got the second tier raid. Then you've got the third tier raid. And then it sounds to me like they're planning on having 6 months with no new raid, but new content, whatever that content happens to be. I don't know. Maybe their plan, and this is just me spitballing because no one bloody well asked them at Gamescom to clarify this. Beggars belief. Surely there must be people with journalistic instincts that go to these things. But anyway, maybe their plan is that during that last 6 months, when the sort of progress raiders have done, they're going to be doing alpha beta stuff. You know, if they go along with their philosophy of trying to invite those people so they can do testing, while there's other sort of more casual content for other people. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're thinking. But it would have been nice if someone had asked them. And that pretty much brings us up to date with the news that was of interest to me, at any rate, from the past week. In terms of sort of channel news, got a couple of notices, really. The first is with the Rep Paladin Q&A I've mentioned at the beginning, just mention it again. So it's going to be Sunday, August the 28th, 7 o'clock PM UK time. Don't know how long it'll last. It'll last as long as it lasts, as long as people want to keep talking about stuff. I usually sort of wind it down then. If you want to see how it goes, I'll put a link to the last one. Just put it up there, so you can click on that if you haven't seen it already. Obviously, what I do is sort of people send me questions. I'll make sure that things are set up to answer those questions. So if you've got any questions you want submitting, let's say you're not able to make that time in particular, then you can put it in messages below, or you can email them to me. The details are in the description below. And of course, you can still ask them live on the show itself if you're able to make that time. But I know not everyone. I try and choose a time where as many as possible can make it, and on a day when as many as possible can make it. But I know that's not always possible. Now, the other thing is there will be a subscriber report again next week. I know I only did one quite recently. The main reason that if you, those who watch that subscribe report, I did say that I didn't want to do it at that time. It was a bit earlier than I had intended, but that troll incident I did feel needed explaining quite quickly, so I brought it out earlier than intended. Because there is going to be a major announcement. It's not going to affect the vast majority of people, if anyone. But I am planning on opening like a Patreon page. Now, it's not going to affect the YouTube channel, or hopefully it will only affect it positively, because it's in order to hopefully raise some money for upgrades to equipment and stuff like that for next year, because I'm planning for next year. But I'm going to explain all that in detail in the subscribe report. I have been wondering if it might be an idea to do it live or not, so I could maybe do that live next Saturday, or I might not. I don't know. It depends. Comments below, depending on whether you'd want to do that. It'd probably be at the same time as the Rep one will be, but obviously the day before on Saturday, so 7 o'clock UK time. So comments below if you want me to do that live. Otherwise, I'll just do it on a normal video and put that out on next Saturday. But yeah, so I'll go over the details on that one next week. And then obviously in the next week, I'm just going to try and finish off what I can in terms of Legion content before Legion launches. And then I need to get myself ready for leveling around work. Hooray. Okay, so hope you've enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll see you later.